All right, as of the posting of this video, Last Epoch will be launching their Season 2. This will be on the 17th. They actually reached out and said, we want to sponsor a video on the channel to talk about Last Epoch. So I asked them, is there a video in particular you're asking me to make? Like, do you want me to make a build guide or something like that, or introduction for new players, beginner's guide, etc.? And they said, no, we actually just want to hear you talk about your thoughts about the game. You can kind of pick the topic. We don't have to watch it. Just put your honest thoughts out about the game. So I thought, okay, what makes the most sense then is this is mostly a Path of Exile 2 channel right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the differences for the people that are most likely playing Path of Exile 2 between PoE 2 and Last Epoch. Also, if you're a PoE 2 player, you more than likely have heard about Last Epoch a lot lately because there was the whole controversy about Path of Exile 2 dropping their league basically 2 days after the original launch day of Last Epoch, and Last Epoch moved it back because of that to the 17th, which will be tomorrow is when it is actually launching. So it's been in the conversation a lot lately from both content creators as well as, just the online space in general because of that particular talking point as well. So thanks to Last Epoch for sponsoring this video. This is a sponsored video, but these are going to be my honest thoughts, as that was the point of what they wanted to sponsor me for. They wanted to know my thoughts and breakdown. So first thing I'm going to do to you is we're just going to show here Steam here. First of all, this is a review. It's very positive, mostly positive. The price point of the game is $35, so it's less than Diablo 4, but like $5 more than Path of Exile 2. But in terms of monetization, all the supporter packs, etc., these are all cosmetic and things in-game, utility items like stash tabs, etc. You don't actually have to buy these. There is no utility you can purchase or quality of life you can purchase. You just buy the game and you're basically done. These stash tabs, for instance, you just like click them. You can get more of these, or you can buy new stash tabs here for gold as well. So you don't really have to worry about that portion of the game. AKA, you spend $35, and unless you want to buy supporter packs for literally cosmetics, then you're done. One other nice part about this game too is it does have a fully offline mode. If I show you here, you can play the game both online, which is their servers, their live servers, but you can also launch it as a fully offline game mode. For this reason, that means you can play this on something like the Steam Deck. It also means in times like, today as of the posting of this video, the servers are going to be down for 24 hours because you're swapping over your to the new patch, etc. In these types of times, or when the servers are having problems on launch, you can literally just run it in offline mode. This is actually how I played the game on the full release of the game itself, because and this is full release, it is not an early access game. They consider it a fully released live service product at this point. Upon the launch of the game, there were server issues the first like 2, maybe 3 days. So I was just playing in offline mode in order to be able to actually access the game. So for me personally, I own a Steam Deck. That is one selling point for me. In terms of classes, it works very similarly to PoE 2. You're going to have a base class and then advanced, what they call masteries, that you essentially ascend into. You have Void Knight, Forge Guard, Paladin, for instance, are all mastery versions of the base class Sentinel. And with these comes passive points that you can spend in the variety of the different branches. Depending upon what you master determines how far you can go. You can see there's a chain here, so I can only go so far in some of these, but I'm a Paladin, so I can go all the way down here in these passives. And your base Sentinel has passive points as well. And this is kind of sort of the similar vibes to like the passive tree from PoE 2. Then this is the part that I think they do particularly well, is the skills. You have skills and specializations. So when you actually go in and you specialize into a skill, each skill has its own tree. And I'm not going to like break down every single detail, but basically it goes like this. Every one of these skills you choose to specialize in is going to have its own specialized tree, and these trees are going to modify the way each one of these skills work, and there are skills based upon the class you choose. So Sentinel, Void Knight, Forge Guard, Paladin, etc. This system, in my opinion, is the shining portion of the game that I think is a big selling factor and drawing point of the game. There's a lot of customization that you can do to your character, but it is also not exceedingly overwhelming. I always thought before Path of Exile 2 came out, the Last Epoch was the middle ground. Before Diablo 4 is like too simple, Path of Exile is too complicated, Last Epoch is sort of in the middle. That was a very common talking point. You would have heard back in the day about this, and I think this rings true still to this day. So the skills and the passives, in my opinion, are in Last Epoch are a W, and that's a significant portion of a player's progression throughout their character. Another significant portion of that would obviously be itemization, and that brings us to crafting in the game. Crafting in the game is actually really good, so it's actually way too in-depth for me to be able to break down in just this quick overview video where I want to touch a little bit on everything, but suffice it to say that if you enjoy processes of crafting items in ARPGs, you have a very thorough crafting system in in the game. We have runes, which do modifiers. We have glyphs, which do modifiers to the crafting process. We have the forging potential, which lets us know basically how many attempts and forging attempts and additions we can actually do to this piece of gear. So like, just to give you an idea here. So I have a spare affix. There's 4 of these affixes here. I have a spare one here. I could available to apply a suffix. So let's just say I want health regeneration. I could add health regeneration on here, and I'll add a glyph. And what do I want the glyph to do? Let's have the glyph of hope, where it has a 25% chance to not cost me forging potential. And I can add on that affix. There we go. Critical success, which means I actually got a bonus to a different affix as well. So I got a tier up 1 of the melee attack speed. Now I could choose to upgrade my attack speed, and you can see here the cost of this costs 1 to 24 forging potential. I still have 34 remaining because it was a critical success, so it didn't take away the forging potential. Or we could just upgrade the tier 1. There we go. And that took 6 forging potential to upgrade the health. Could upgrade again, cost 10. Well, maybe now I want to do the melee attack speed, and I could do that as well. And now we go, my forging potential is 10. This affix is maxed. We have 10 potential left to go here, and that only cost me 3. So now we go here, and this, okay, glyph of hope actually procced, which means it didn't cost me any of my forging potential. So there's all these modifiers. I mean, there's more we could even do. There's a chance to seal an affix instead of upgrading it. The sealed affix is moved to its own slot. So let's just try to seal off armor. I hit that one, and look at that. The affix actually did seal, so I moved it off to the side. So I could add on yet another affix. Maybe I want to do void resistance. Well, I should have thought of that earlier, because now my forging potential is gone, and I can't add on that affix. So this is just like a random, just, cluster of just clicking random things here to give you an idea. But you can see the process is actually a little bit more involved, and that is before we start talking about, unique items and legendary potential, which is basically you can take a stat from another item and slam it onto a unique item to get even more stats and get even more in depth with your build. So that is just a brief overview. There's also, I forget all about the Weaver stuff, where you can have Weaver's Will, which actually will give you items to like evolve with your character and become stronger as you level them up, etc. And they're even adding on more into season 2. To be honest with you, I don't even fully understand all of the crafting in the game, because I haven't gotten all the way deep into it, where I'm like crafting, min-maxing literally everything in the same way that I don't understand all the crafting in Path of Exile 1 yet. So there's enough of a system here that if you are somebody that enjoys crafting, you have that to dive into, and there's some very high ceiling potential in terms of creating items. This is actually a pretty big deal in my opinion, because I think half of the gameplay in ARPGs in terms of player progression is your character, your skills, how you're doing the passive tree, your build, and your class, and the other half of it is what you choose to equip the character with. And if you don't have both of these in ARPG, you can feel lackluster at some point during your gameplay, but Last Epoch does have both of these. We didn't even talk about the Ido system yet. The Ido system is effectively like kind of like charms from Diablo 2. You can put these in here, and these will give you passive bonuses, and there can be unique versions of the Idos as well that will help further modify whatever build you happen to be doing, etc. So you have all of these further modifiers to go through the Ido system too. And if it feels any bit overwhelming, the system is actually decently easy to understand, but it does have a high ceiling. So if you're trying to understand it better than myself that just has a basic understanding of playing the game and leveling up, there's plenty of people out there that have very thorough guides on how each and every one of these systems work. But what I like about Last Epoch is you don't feel like you get lost in the sauce too much. I've been able to play the game. I never really min-max very much. I just go into the game and play. I wasn't playing someone's build guide. I was just clicking the things that look correct, drag and dropping what seems right to me, learning the crafting as I go, and using my resources as I go. And I never really felt like I was massively punished for not choosing to use like a min-max build guide from the start. You can actually just play the game. And that actually was my primary explanation to people on the launch of the game on what I thought was a selling point of the game, is the ability to actually just play the game without having to feel the necessity of like getting a PhD in the game in order to actually be able to play it, but yet still having the depth that you need to continue to be interested in the game. The campaign's fairly all right. I won't say it's like the massive selling point or anything in the game. I think it's fairly decent. And the two criticisms I had of the game from playing it is, one, you very commonly hear about a graphics criticism. People, maybe they don't like the way the graphics look. In Season 2, it's actually getting a bit of a graphical update, which I think is nicely needed. So I am excited to see what that ends up looking like. And the other bit of criticism you would probably hear from people is the in-game monolith system. I myself have said this on the release of the game. I thought the monolith system, which is basically almost like pits from Diablo, where you kind of continually push like further and further into corruption to have more and more difficulty, you know, up into infinity. Basically, you have layered difficulty. I thought that system hadn't been you know, fully developed, in my opinion, fully implemented yet, but season 2 is adding even more additions, and they have their first like uber pinnacle boss, etc., that's being added into the game. So I'm interested to see with season 2 coming out how much of the additions are going to change these two portions of feedback from me. There's actually a significant amount of patches and patch notes. I heard the patch notes were like 100 pages long, and when I heard that, I thought, I'm not even going to read all this. I'm just going to play the game and see what I think. But there is a significant amount of additions, both coming to in-game balance, itemization updates. For instance, like you can just kind of look at, you know, here's, I think that's 76 pages or something. Like there's a whole bunch, and that's just one of the posts in here. We have quality life dungeons and other improvements as well. So season 2 is going to be a significant patch for them. So my take for Last Epoch has basically remained the same since launch. Last Epoch is one of those games that it is obvious that the people that are making the game are definitely ARPG enjoyers. They seem to understand the process and the progression of character power and itemization and skills and what it means to like develop and build out a character and have a choice of actually developing your character. They understand that process. They particularly seem to understand crafting very well in a feels good and also putting in some dopamine with the slamming style as well. So those are the points that I really honed in on the most. I thought playing the game on launch, this seemed like a game that if I gave them about 2 years, they're going to come back and have continued to develop the game, and it's going to be like one of the best ARPGs ever made. I still believe that with Last Epoch. I'm curious to see with season 2, with the insane amount of additions that I've looked just scrolling through here, that I'm curious to see where the game stands going into season 2. I was not one of the people that got early access or anything like that to the actual season 2. I know some people were able to kind of test it all out there, but I'm going to go in fairly blind and see what the game actually looks like. But it was a fairly decent game and definitely worth $35 upon the release of the game. And with all of the additions here, I'm curious to see where it ends up with after season 2. Now, if any of what I have said rings interesting to you, or maybe you want more information because you're not entirely sold, I would send you over here to the Last Epoch season 2 patch overview. There's a 20-minute video, and instead of me being a React Andy just kind of watching this and blabbing over the top, they actually have a full breakdown of what season 2 is going to add into the game as well. So I would recommend watching this to see both the new visuals as well as the additions that are coming, and see if any of this piques your interest also. So if you're asking my opinion today, I think it's worth $35. It's worth enough to test out to see if it's a game you actually like. There's selling features like offline mode as well as Steam Deck, and they seem to be consistently developing the game, although admittedly at a slower cadence than some of the other ARPGs. The quantity of updates that we're seeing here in season 2 look very significant. So that's just it. That's one man's take on the game. Thank you, The Last Epoch, for sponsoring this video. Hope you guys enjoyed the chat, and let me know what you think of the game once you play it. I'll be live every single day upon the release of season 2, and I'm going to go in and see what I think. That's about it.